economy. So, like, if there are sanctions, how do they, like you said, it's not going to go towards supporting the average Iranian person. It's going to go towards supporting the government, which is essentially the right wing military arm of the government, correct? Which is, in my opinion, kind of run like a Cosa Nostra mafia, terrorist or semi-terrorist organization. So I'm just saying that I don't know. I've heard these rooms for a long time, on Clubhouse, and it seems like you get the update, but it's more like an analysis update. But I was reading Rumi today, and I like Persian food and I like Persian people. I mean, how many people in the government are bad people? I mean, are they? They're not. They don't want to self-destruct. And I'm sure they want to survive. But like, where's the average
Right.
government
Right.
official's mind at?
So yeah, we could kind of tell you the specific. I mean, they literally, and I believe that the missiles of Iran, it says death to to Israel and death to the Zionist entity. That is exactly what their missiles are basically pointed to say. And I believe Alex kind of told me just when we were talking. One of the ways in which this regime believes that they're going to be closer to God is literally by removal or destruction of the state of Israel. So yeah, I guess that
But
should
what does
answer a
that
lot.
mean to them, though? I mean, like, what the hell does that mean to them?
Right. It could mean a whole bunch of things. It could mean, I mean, nuking them. I mean, obviously they support Hamas and Hezbollah, which send, thousands of rockets every single, you could say, month or every other month. And of course, they have serious ideological and religious differences with Saudi Arabia, who's the caretaker of Islam, right? Where you could say the Houthis are sending a barrage of missiles into Riyadh and other cities. But yeah, let's go to Alex and then maybe Jason. Jason, if you wanted to answer his question. But yeah, go ahead, Alex, first, and then we'll go to Jason.
The guard that you're talking about, audio, is the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. They are not the military wing. They are a parallel, as you said, Cosa Nostra mafia army related to the Ayatollah. They have taken control of the country. If you're part of this group of people, if you're part of the guard, they literally benefit off the backs of the Iranian people by getting away with kickbacks. They are the ones that are notorious for proxy warfare across the Middle East. And at the same time, this individual who stabbed Salman Rushdie was now allegedly getting information from the Quds Force, which is their special ops for people like Soleimani, who was the commander. So that's just my portion of what I want to
Right.
say. Yeah, so.
Right. Thank you. Yeah, Jason, did you want to answer his question about what it would mean ideologically for the IRGC in terms of getting a nuke?
In terms of getting a nuclear weapon, well, I mean, I'm not really sure what the question was.
I
I'm not
mean, like,
understanding.
his notion is that, maybe Iran is a state we could work with,
No, no. The
they
United
could.
States can't. The United States can't work with Iran because Iran is predicated on having Iran's leadership, not its people. Its leadership is predicated on having enmity with the United States,
And
and so
Israel.
under the current leadership, that's just not possible. A narrow deal like the nuclear deal, transactional, might be possible, but I don't think it's sustainable because of Iran's other conduct around the world and at home. And that is my problem with the nuclear deal. I like to look at the Iranian challenge comprehensively, not just as a nuclear file. And I think that that's where the United States has gone wrong for much of the last 3 administrations. We're singularly focused on a nuclear deal, and that's been the problem.
Right, and just as a follow up to that audio, and I don't want to kind of get off topic too much. I want to hear from Faisal as well. Is you have to keep in mind that ideologically this regime is very hell bent on the destruction of the Jewish state as well as internally destructing the U.S. in certain ways. Right? I mean, whether it was Masih Alinejad or Salman Rushdie. I mean, we can give you guys countless examples where the Iranian regime basically has their agents in the U.S. They're here right now as we speak. They're probably in Canada, several other countries, and they go after private citizens of these countries because they're political activists, or you could say they have a certain political cause that they're trying to promote. And unfortunately, what that does is that I guess, further legitimizes a terror or a rogue entity. And I think that's one huge reason why the U.S., regardless of the administration, Republican or Democrat, has always considered them a leading state sponsor of terror.
Deep, can I
And
just ask one follow-up question?
no, maybe we gotta get to other people
Wait,
though.
please. It's about Saudi
Wait a
Arabia.
second, it's my turn.
Okay, hold on. We can't have multiple mics and mute either. Yeah, let's just go to Faisal and then we'll get back to you. Yeah, we don't want to get into a tangent. What's going on, Faisal? How are you?
Hi, doing deep. How are you? Thank you for having me. Glad to be with Alex and Jason, Shan, and Adrian. It's been a while, a minute. My heart and prayer goes to Mr. Rushdie and his family and his supporters. What happened to him? Uh, it's an assassination attempt. We have to name it, the way it is. Uh, uh, I don't want to go in the rabbit hole of conspiracy, but the all that I get, the more I come to the realization that the political elites, they don't care about U.S. national interest, U.S. national security. The elites in Europe, they don't care about European national security or the Middle East in general. They want this deal done. They want it for political reasons, for economic reasons, and they're bound to do it. And this deal it harm U.S. National security. We're dealing with a regime that commit atrocity against the Iranian people. We're dealing with a regime that commit atrocity all over the Middle East. We're dealing with the Iranian Revolutionary Guard that is active in Venezuela, is active with the drug cartel in Mexico. It have its agents in Europe. They kidnap U.S. nationals, dual citizenship, and bring them for trials in Iran. And the mainstream media does not cover it. I don't, it's mind-boggling to me that Ali Khamenei is still in Twitter, still spreading hate and ideology, while the U.S. ex-president is censored and kicked out of Twitter. I honestly don't get it anymore because, when we talk about geopolitics, foreign policy, we talk about reasonable decisions, and everything what's happening for the past 15 years is upside down. Since that first deal, they tried to assassinate the Saudi ambassador to the U.S. by bombing a restaurant that a lot of U.S. officials goes to, and the mainstream media did not cover that. They kidnap. They try to assassinate in U.S. soil Iranian dissident, and the mainstream media does not cover that. I think I came to this realization that the political elite do not care about any of the American people or care about U.S. national interest. They only care about what they could get from this deal, which is
They
economic
care about
incentive.
funding the globalists and the Soros-funded agenda.
You're precisely right, my friend, and it's a shame. While this, Mr. Rushdie is fighting for his life, while people with assassination attempt in dissident in New York City, in Brooklyn, people with AK-47, loaded AK-47, go to their house, and the U.S. still talking to this regime. This regime, there is no point of rehabilitating this regime because it's based on ideology. They think their ideology have to create enemies for them to stay in power in Iran. But without these enemies, Israel, Saudi Arabia, and the U.S., that regime would not last for too long. It cannot exist. And the CCP road Silk Road initiative goes through Iran. Their nuclear program. The North Korean work there. With the approval of the CCP, and it's everything pointing to the fact that this deal is not in the best interest of the American people, is not the best interest of the Middle East, is not the best interest of U.S. national security. And I think the Biden administration will try to finalize this deal. Possibly, I get Jason's point of view that the Iranian demand is too high, but I think this administration is too weak, and they will accept any deals. They're going to try to market this deal as diplomatic win for the administration, which is not. And sadly, everybody in the Middle East, wondering why, what's going on with the U.S. when it comes to foreign policy. Thank you.
No, no, thank you, Faisal, and I appreciate the passion. You're so spot on. And I appreciate the anger too, right? I mean, we should not be seeing in the year 2022 a U.S. citizen on U.S. soil in New York at a public event, literally being stabbed on stage in front of thousands of people, right? I mean, you could ask yourself, where's the security failures? What's going on here, right? Simply for speaking his voice on a particular issue, and
With
we should not be
all
seeing that.
with all honesty, Deep, I did not know Mr. Rushdie is an American citizen, except from Jason right now. No mainstream media is covering this. No, nobody's saying that he's an American citizen. A lot of people saying he's British. So, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy that a U.S. citizen gets attacked in an assassination attempt. And I don't hear people, in CNN, screaming loudly, attacking the regime in Tehran. Everybody is giving excuses. And this is not acceptable.
Yeah, no, this is. I mean, it should get your blood boiling. I mean, you say anything critical about a particular religion, or a particular point of view, or a particular belief, you should not be stabbed in the neck on American soil in front of everybody. So, thank you so much for that, Faisal. Anything else, mate? And then I'll go on
Yes.
to Shaya.
Final thought. The RGC, cronies. Send me always threats on Twitter and everywhere else. I think twice before I go to Lebanon. Visit Lebanon, even though I have a house there. These people are very dangerous, and now they're active in U.S. soil. They've been active in U.S. soil for the past 15, 20 years, very active, and everybody else, our intelligence apparatus here in the U.S., looking the other way. Nobody's doing anything about it. U.S. official, ex-Secretary of State, ex-head of CIA, national security advisors, getting threatened, and assassination plots, and no mainstream media coverage. I don't see article talking about this. I don't see attacks against the regime in Tehran. And it make me wonder, why is this happening?
Yeah,
Can
go
I
ahead,
just
Jason.
can I just
Of course, go ahead.
Faisal, I think you raised some very important points, and I share your anger. But I think there has been coverage of the assassination plots and the stabbing. I've been watching it on CNN. But I think the real issue is it's not the coverage or lack thereof. It's more of the lack of the connection of the coverage of the assassination attempt with the broader U.S. policy towards Iran, which is basically non-existent because we have a JCPOA policy. And right now, these situations are being handled on a piecemeal, case-by-case as a law enforcement matter. And they have not translated into a policy response from the U.S. government. We're still talking about this nuclear deal, but we don't have a policy response as to how to deter Iran from trying to harm Americans on U.S. soil. And that's been the missing piece here. And I would like to see that coverage in the media. Unfortunately, we have not had that coverage from my perspective, but I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with Jason. I just think that people in America are just so misinformed about the root causes of all of the problems that we're in, and I think that you're right, Jason. I mean, there has been some media coverage about it, but the media is not going to tell you the specifics of who the IRGC is, or why they're a terrorist organization, or why we should be not entering a deal with them in this particular manner. Instead, they're obviously, especially the more liberal media outlets, the so-called Soros-funded ones, right? They're not going to kind of portray Iran in a negative light as much, right? But yeah, go ahead, Faisal.
I get Jason's point of view, and it's very valid and very well put. But I remember in 2018 when Jamal Khashoggi got killed at the U.S. Embassy in Turkey. Every single mainstream media connected to the king of Saudi Arabia. They were blunt about it. They were attacking the kingdom, the crown prince. And as somebody who's part American, part Saudi, understand the region very well, I don't see the same coverage or the same connections or the same trying to imply that the Iranian Revolutionary Guard have agents in the U.S. They're very active agents. I don't see this connection. So this is, is my concern and my criticism of the mainstream media. They try to sugarcoat what happened. They try to say, the ex-Iranian president said that fatwa does not exist. While the supreme leader 2 years ago posted in Twitter that Salman Rushdie is still a target. Thank you.
Thank you, Faisal. Thank you. Let's go over to Cheyenne John. What's going on, Cheyenne? Long time no see.
Hi, Deep. Sorry. Good to see you guys, Alex, Faisal, Jason, Adrian, and everyone else. Well, I don't have much to add. I just agree with everything that has been said so far. I just want to say that, it's in a sense, although it's shocking, what they are doing, especially with the attack on Salman Rushdie in U.S. soil. In a sense, it's not that surprising. Every time they see or they feel weakness from the U.S., they just become aggressive, and it's part of it. And at the moment, I think they feel empowered. They feel that America has its hands full with Ukraine, and they don't want to have any conflict with Iran. And this administration is trying desperately to come up with some kind of a deal with them and all that stuff. So they feel they can become aggressive, and that's how they are doing it. That's one part of it. And the other part is that at the same time, they are extremely weak internally. There's a lot of turmoil in Iran. The economy is tanking. There's a lot of anger on the streets, and people are really, fed up with the regime. So in order to rally their supporters and to project some kind of a power and things like that, they go aggressive, and they try to do things like this in order to kind of shore up their support within the radicals inside Iran. So it's a combination of all of these things, and I'm just really glad that Salman Rushdie survived this attack. However, I'm not that optimistic that this administration, Biden administration, is going to do what is necessary in order to send the signal strong enough to...
No, as a matter of fact, they want to do the opposite. They want to enter a nuclear deal.
Exactly.
Lift the sanctions.
Exactly. That's what worries me about all this, because knowing the mentality of the Islamic regime, I know that they usually take it the wrong way, and they take it as a green light that okay, you can do whatever you want. And we witnessed this in Europe. For a long time, Europeans did the same thing. They were desperate to have a normal relations with the Islamic regime, and they all looked the other way as a lot of Iranian dissidents in Europe got assassinated one after another. Some of them with the cooperation of the secret services around Europe. And the signal that they sent was that, you know what, these are Iranian citizens. You can do whatever you want with them, so long as you don't harm any of our citizens. You can do whatever you want, basically. And, hundreds of people got killed, assassinated all around Europe. Now they are even more aggressive with someone like, Salman Rushdie. It just takes it to another level, and it speaks volumes to the way that they think the Biden administration is going to react. And it's just disturbing to see that they fear absolutely basically nothing from this administration, and they think that they can get away with almost anything, even assassinating a U.S. citizen, someone as
Well, they
important.
have been, and not only have they been getting away with it, Cheyenne John, they've been increasing, their presence in the United States.
I
Of
know,
course,
I know.
the Masih Alinejad attack, last year, that was pretty bad. Thankfully, that was defoiled. But you enter a public venue where there's thousands of people. You have a keynote speaker on stage, and someone can go up there, stab him not once, multiple times, including the neck and the abdomen. That speaks volumes of just how much the IRGC has penetrated, the U.S. Over the course of the last couple of years. And it should be worth noting too that under the last administration, right, under the Trump administration, we did not see a single attack successfully executed, by IRGC agents on American soil, right? So. This is a new precedent, a new kind of reality altogether. So thank you so much for that, Cheyenne John. What is going on, Adrian? I'd love to hear your thoughts, mate. Go ahead.
Hi, Deep. Hello, everyone. This story, it broke on Friday. Immediately, I see Salman Rushdie. I see Chautauqua, New York. So that's right outside Buffalo, where I grew up, and used to go there. Been to the Institute. It's a quiet little town. This guy drove all the way from New Jersey to execute this attempt on this life. And if there's something a lot different than, when, not to say that I've ever done this and never planned on doing this, but when you shoot somebody versus stabbing somebody, there's something very different about it. And there's something absolutely vicious about going in and stabbing a person. It's completely different. I remember Brett Stevens wrote a great article on that. But in any event, back to Salman Rushdie. 1992, Stuart Bell reported there was an Arabian operative scouting a venue in Toronto where Rushdie was supposed to speak. So this plot, and people thought, once it's written, once the fatwa is there, it doesn't get rescinded, especially after Khomeini is dead. Someone's not going to come back. He can't do that. And we've seen speeches from going back 2 years to individuals like Khani from the IRGC. Soleimani's replacement, talking about Salman Rushdie, still to this day, and this was going back 1 or 2 years. Okay, so you have the Rushdie plot, assassination attempt. You have the plot on Bolton. All right, on his. So you have the plot on Bolton, and it's uncovered that there's surveillance on Pompeo as well. A lot of this stuff was public knowledge about Pompeo, Hook. Bolton, I had not heard come up because he was not in the administration when the Soleimani strike happened. And from what I've heard from the intelligence community is that is the goal of the IRGC/MOIS is to drop a U.S. body associated with that operation on U.S. soil. And it's to do it sometime in this time frame of September to November. So you look at Trump, Hook, and then there you go down to Rayburn, Haspel, Grinnell, McKenzie, anybody, people are involved at CENTCOM. Grinnell because he was at Ramstein. Then there's also the dissident hit list. Ali Massinajad, we saw another attempt on her life, the attempt on Salman Rushdie's life. All right, and then Reza Pahlavi still is a target. Going back to the individual, guy drives all the way from New Jersey to Chautauqua, New York. That's a long drive. It's about 7-8 hours, 7 hours at least. The driver's license, the fake driver's license that he has, and I find this really just brutally ironic and ridiculous. And if someone actually printed up this driver's license, it was fake. But if someone printed it up, there should have been a background check on it right now. Right when it happened, his name is Hassan Munia, was the fake name that he had on there. If anybody doesn't know who Munia is, Imad Munia was the Hezbollah mastermind that was taken out in 2008 by a CIA Mossad operation. This guy, the other part about his New Jersey coming from there, there's also something disturbing. Jason talked about, the connections not being made within the media, and I see a lot of, you try and look for the connections, and a lot of people are trying to disconnect the dots, and I think you need to connect them. But New Jersey's kind of got a bad history with, well, I'll throw out the name Alexei Saab, and he was Unit 910, and he was just finally locked up, and the key was thrown away. He was scouting Fenway Park, Quincy Market, places in New York, places in DC. There was another couple of other individuals, one from Brooklyn, that area. So I know that after 9/11, for Moyes and the IRGC, the environment became less permissive, but they've always had Hezbollah as a proxy to do stuff like that. The other thing I want to point to is with this active assassination plot, a lot of things have slipped through the cracks here, such as the two agents that had been imposters. They were acting as Secret Service agents for over 2 years. I think it was 2 years. All right. And those are the people to protect current individuals in the administration and people who are out of the administration, Secret Service. These guys were armed to the teeth with body armor. They had night vision goggles. They were deemed a flight risk, and then they were released. One's ISI, the other one's IRGC, or Moyes, one of the two. And then there's also the big mystery about the Jason and I don't know if I'm going off on a tangent here, but it's concerning because it's to our southern border. Is you have a plane that's flying around, it's grounded in Argentina right now, that looks like a hit squad that's been traveling around South America or paying off people. It's just a very, very scary time. And Jason, when he said, and I heard this and I was like, oh gosh, law enforcement problem. We've got a JCPOA probably, and we got JCPOA policy, and we're dealing with this as a law enforcement problem. And if you remember everything if you read the 9/11 report, if you read everything coming up to 9/11, a terrorist attack happening on U.S. soil, it was a couple of things. It was a failure to connect the dots, all right? And then terrorism was being treated as a law enforcement issue. This is an act.
Yeah, Adrian, I think we lost you there.
Yeah, this was an attack. This was an assassination attack on U.S. soil. And this is terrorism. This is not a law enforcement issue at this point.
Yeah, thank you so much, Adrian. Really do appreciate it. Yeah, I think I wholeheartedly agree with you. I just want to circle back to Jason and kind of get the other people's thoughts on this as well. But Jason, now that we've obviously seen these series of attacks that have happened, how does the kind of the Homeland Security take care of these IRGC agents? Is there any steps that have been taken? What do we do in the future to prevent such attacks? If you're still with us, yeah, go ahead, and then we'll have maybe others who want to chime in.
I think we need to deter these future attacks, not just waiting until there's, God forbid, a successful attack. We need to deter even and impose severe consequences even for attempted attacks, like the one on John Bolton. There's precedent in U.S. history for taking steps even when there's attempted assassinations against former U.S. officials. So there are steps that the U.S. can take, military in nature, to deter and to impose costs and to impose such severe costs that Iran will not ever try it again. So that is what I'm talking about in terms of prevention.
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. Let's hope that happens though, because we've been seeing, deterrence obviously not work, which is why these attacks are happening, and they're happening all too frequently.
I'm unfortunately, I'm not enthusiastic that it will. I still don't think that we're reactive here, and at the same time we're begging Iran to accept billions of dollars worth of sanctions relief. That's not necessarily a robust deterrence strategy. So
no, it makes them much richer, and the mullahs are already very rich because oil
right.
prices are very high.
Right. I've looked at the response to several of these situations, and what happens is that the U.S. government treats it as a law enforcement problem. There's an indictment. Usually then it's accompanied by a statement from the White House or the State Department, Justice Department, what have you, condemning it. Then occasionally there are piecemeal sanctions on very low-level individuals, usually the person who is the main operational plotter. And then, occasionally the president or the secretary of state or, a vice president will meet with the victim. And then they'll be swept under the rug, and we'll be moving on to the next big item with Iran. In terms of the JCPOA. So that's kind of that's the problem with this with the U.S. approach.
Yeah, no, thank you for that, Adrian. Anything you'd like to add to that, or anyone else, on what the U.S. could do in the future to prevent such attacks?
No, I think Jason nailed it. There's no deterrence, and deterrence starts in other places. We kind of rolled back and I mean, as Jason said, handing billions of dollars is not a deterrent. So without that, how can you curb their what they're going to do? You can't, and it's going to fall eventually. It'll just fall on some trigger men. So.
And by the way, I want to just add something. Even if you support going back into the nuclear deal, you should also support a more robust U.S. response to these non-nuclear challenges and threats that we have from Iran. Because as we've learned in the past, you want the surest pathway to see diplomacy and nuclear negotiations and deals collapse is to not have a broader Iran strategy and policy. And that's been the problem here. We have been singularly obsessed and focused on resurrecting and reviving this nuclear deal that we have to brush everything else off to the side. And we've seen this movie before. If the deal is revived, we have to keep the deal in place, and we have to be so careful and walk on eggshells with Iran to avoid them doing anything that would be escalatory. This is the mindset that results in collapsed diplomacy. And it's unfortunate we haven't been able to learn those lessons.
Absolutely. Yeah, go ahead, Faisal.
Yeah, I have a question for Jason, Adrian, and everybody else. Logical. What's the benefit of re-entering the deal to the U.S.? Is there any benefits to the U.S. or the Europeans when it comes to national security or not? That's my question.
It gives the Democrats, I guess, something to talk about to their constituents. But yeah, go ahead, Jason.
Well, I think that if you were to ask the people who support going back into it, it would just say we put Iran's nuclear program back into a box. what I would call a very saggy, hole-ridden box that is going to be dilapidated soon. But this is what they would say. Temporarily, we put it in a box. We know it's imperfect. We know it's flawed, but it's the best thing that's out there. And that would be the argument. Without a broader, more comprehensive, forward-looking strategy as to how we can tackle the Iranian threat. And my problem with the nuclear deal has been that it has proven to end the conversation on Iran rather than begin the conversation on Iran, because it's structured in a way that the most powerful sanctions in the US architecture are relieved for this problem, and we are crippled from doing a lot on Iran in other areas: non-nuclear, terrorism, human rights, drone and missile proliferation, assassinations. Even we have, if we go back to this deal, then there's also going to be a hesitancy to push back at Iran and impose policy consequences. God forbid if there are more assassination attempts, because then people will say, "Oh, we don't want to rock the boat with the nuclear deal." So this is the problem with this deal.
So correct me if I'm wrong. So we want to enter a deal with the Iranian without any real guarantees, while the Iranian regime supplying the Russians, which we're fighting in the Ukraine, supporting the Ukrainian with drones. And you know what's going to happen exactly once that deal's signed? Every single country in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Egypt, will work to get their nuclear weapon. That's exactly what's going to happen. So they didn't solve any problem. They created more problem with this deal.
Right. I mean, we don't want to speculate on other nuclear programs as of yet, but it certainly doesn't seem.
The Saudi
Faisal,
Crown Prince said it on live TV. Prince Mohammed bin Salman said it in live TV. Once the Iranians have their weapon, we're going to have our weapon at the same time. Every single country in the region saying the same thing.
I think Faisal, I think the amount of headaches that this deal creates on a whole range of issues, forgetting even the nuclear side, more resources for Iran to spread mayhem in the region. Also, U.S. allies and partners in the region. For example, the Emirates. We have a 1-2-3 agreement with them. Why are they're going to say, why are we subject to the zero enrichment standard, and Iran, a U.S. adversary, is subject to the enrichment standard, the 3.67% standard? So that's the problem here, and it's just backwards in my view.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Jason, for that. Let's hear from one of our guests who's on stage as well, Mujtaba. Yeah, let's hear from you. Go ahead.
Hi, this is Mujtaba Mohammadi. First of all, I'm sickened that Salman Rushdie has been assassinated against. I hope he recovers fully. And I am a victim of the regime's terror threats almost on a daily basis. I receive messages. And however, I am a follower of the path of Dr. Mossadegh. Dr. Mossadegh, who was overthrown in 1953 by the CIA and MI6 in order to restore the Shah. And that act of killing Iran's secular democracy resulted in the so-called Islamic Revolution, and the current regime has nothing to do with anything Islamic, anything sacred, and it's not even an ideology. It is a group of people that have got the power and they want to retain it at any cost. And they create they create enemies as needed in order to maintain their grip on fascistic so-called Islamic power. And they use, like their counterparts in the US, in the Republican Party, you may throw me out of the stage or out of the room by saying this, like their counterparts in the Republican Party of the US, they are against the nuclear deal. The regime benefits economically, politically, and ideologically those few that are still have been brainwashed with the ideology of the so-called Islamic Republic. They benefit from the sanctions. They benefit. They benefit by squishing the Iranian people and their counterparts in the US, in the Republican Party, in Israel, and in Saudi Arabia, and Russia, and Putin, and to some extent China. They all benefit from the sanctions because Dr. Mossadegh said internal despotism and external colonialism are two sides of the same coin. At the time, the ones who overthrew Dr. Mossadegh's secular democratic government, they did not want a person who in the, a leader elected by.
All right, I think
He
we're
was not
losing you
elected by
there.
the people. That's false. He was not elected by the people. He was appointed
Up
by the
to.
Majlis.
Okay, all right. So I think we lost you there, Mujtaba. If you wanted to come back in, feel free. But
I
Alex, did you
know,
want to?
I know you didn't let me speak because I'm
No,
speaking the
no,
truth.
you were in the matrix there. But yeah, go ahead, mate.
You want Iran, you want the Iranian regime to survive in order to squish the Iranian people and our democratic rights and our human rights violated. You don't have a
I don't think
problem.
anyone
You
wants the
don't have.
regime to survive.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's a
Yeah.
bunch of misinformation. First of all, Mossadegh was a Russian puppet by the Soviet communists. First of all, second of all, there was not a coup. The Shah of Iran constitutionally was allowed to do that. The Shah of Iran made Iran what it was a powerful economic powerhouse in the Middle East. The people of Iran benefit from that. And you over here are a Bernie Sanders supporter. You sound like a communist yourself, sir. Please do not waste our time. We don't. People are dying. People are starving. People are thirsty. We don't support the regime in Iran. We absolutely hate the regime, the dictatorship, as you fantasize about your friend Mossadegh. You people were the reason why the revolution happened and got rid of our Shah. Your concept of what just happened and why we have an Ayatollah zealot dictatorship in the power.
Alex, can I just ask you a question about Mossadegh? Because, I mean, from the, I guess, according to what you're saying, I know is history revisionism. I didn't know he was a Soviet puppet. But, I mean,
Yeah,
from
he
the
was.
perspective of capitalism versus socialism, communism, I mean, the story sounds nice that he gave the resources back to the people. But is that what actually happened during that period after he assumed power?
No, he benefited the Russians. He was a puppet of the Russian Soviet state. That's why he was gotten rid
I
of.
get it, but I think like the CIA conspiracy theory is obviously like British Petroleum and all these other oil petroleum producing corporations got cut out of the revenue. So I'm just saying that like whoever that guy was that you guys kicked out, he's you could tell he's very passionate about the Iranian people, and happiness and peace in the country, but I hate to jump in, but I mean, it's a fascinating room. And, I speak a little Farsi because I used to live in Tehrangeles, and I know Delam barat kheli teng shode, which means, I've missed you, my beloved. So I don't know, the food, the language, the women, I love it all.
If
Excuse
you
me,
if
but
you want,
then I'm sorry, but then I just came up here to say that it is about nuclear dear, not the history, because there are so many, other rooms about the history of Iran. So let's just stick to the topic. Thank you very much.
Agreed.
Yeah, if you ever want a good book, just read The Persian Puzzle by Kenneth Pollock. It goes through a good history of this, and he's, down the middle.
Hey, Deep, are you there?
Yeah. No, I just wanted to get you guys going. Yeah, no, John, go ahead, please. Yeah. By the way, yeah. If if I'm not there, you guys could just take over. Whoever else wants to go on to the next speaker. Yeah, go ahead, now, John. It's good to hear from you.
Hi, Deep. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. Well, actually, I was listening and I was learning a lot, and I really appreciate the perspectives that have been brought up in this room. But I think that it is not the place to talk about Mossadegh and who he was. So I think that it's better to talk about the nuclear deal, which is like, as you said, a big mistake by America. So I'm going to listen. Thank you very much.
Okay, all right. Yeah, if you wanted to kind of, answer his question on that, you can as well. We've kind of covered a lot. Jason kind of had to leave, but I think the gist of this whole thing is that this new nuclear deal is terrible for the United States, but it'll most likely go through because it does give the Democrats talking points entering into the midterms. And of course, the previous administration had a very different policy approach towards Iran. No appeasement policy, maximum pressure, and of course, absolutely no nuclear deal. And of course, Biden being Biden, he does want to kind of do the opposite of what his predecessor did. So, will that prevent the mullahs from acquiring a nuke? To be honest with you, they already have the nuclear material to have a nuke. It just requires about 6 to 9 months, for them to assemble that. Maybe a couple years if the process is delayed, but they pretty much have the nuclear material. You could say the uranium enriched, close to, you could say weapons grade. So when you free up these sanctions, and mind you, we didn't talk about this earlier, and I wanted to kind of mention the economic piece of this as well. Oil prices are at a pretty high margin right now. They kind of cooled off recently, but this entire summer they've been close to record highs. So this regime is indeed richer than it has ever been before, in recent memories. And so obviously, like Cheyenne John mentioned, right, despite the regime being so rich, living standards in Iran are pretty low, and the economic problems from inflation are getting worse. But this basically this sanctions relief will probably continue the path of obviously providing the mullahs a lot of relief, but at the same time make their path to improving the lives of their own people much worse. And I think that's kind of what was highlighted earlier in the conversation. And of course, when you give the IRGC, an organization like the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, you give them billions of dollars worth of, sanctions relief. I mean, additional revenue on top of what they're already making. Imagine how much more dangerous they can be, right? We talk about Hezbollah, we talk about the Houthis, we talk about Hamas, right? We talk about a lot of these organizations in the Middle East that cause a lot of problems, for the neighboring countries. Imagine, what they're going to do, and of course, U.S. citizens on U.S. soil. Just imagine how much worse it's going to get as they get billions and billions of dollars more, or maybe even trillions of dollars more. I mean, when you give a country like Iran full sanctions relief, or at least partial economic sanctions relief compared to what it is now, that will make things more difficult. But we have a new speaker on stage. We'll go to Nima, and then we'll kind of maybe go to a couple of other people who may have joined us a little bit later. But Nima, what are your thoughts? Go ahead, mate.
Thank you very much for bringing me on stage. I haven't really listened in on the conversation. I just joined recently, so not really sure what has been said. But I think from a standpoint of U.S. foreign policy, the nuclear deal is absolutely of no net benefit to United States foreign policy. It doesn't really increase U.S. economic interests in the region. It doesn't really curtail it doesn't really inhibit Russia and China from expanding into the region, which are the two main U.S. Adversaries in that area. I don't think it really does any benefits for U.S. corporations or U.S. national security interests. And the only reason that I see why the Democratic Party in particular and some factions of it really want this nuclear agreement, this nuclear deal to go through um, is a lobbying effort, is actually a coordinated lobbying effort, not just from the Islamic Republic, but from other parties as well, like other interests that can benefit from this nuclear deal, which we can like go into it more as the conversation goes on into like who are the people who actually benefit from this. But in terms of U.S. national interests, as an Iranian American, I just do not see in any way how this agreement is of benefit because you're telling a country that, you know, you're telling a system, a regime that is having problems with you not to go nuclear, and then we're gonna, you know, lift certain sanctions and stuff. But this is like putting, and from a medical standpoint, because I'm a physician myself, it's like putting a band-aid on a wound that needs very invasive surgery, you know, and that's exactly what the United States, the Democratic position in general, has been doing for the past 2 decades. I'll just listen in and then maybe like we can add more to the topic later. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that your thoughts are more or less in line with what we've kind of discussed throughout the course of this discussion. Um, this deal really doesn't do much for American self-interest, but it does do a lot for Biden's political kind of ambitions and intentions, right? Because the mainstream media and the Soros kind of run, you could say, agenda of the liberal press will be to promote this type of you could say deal, and of course appeasing the Iranian regime. And obviously that does absolutely nothing for the security situation of this country, and it does absolutely nothing for the security situation abroad. Or for Iranians in Iran, right? Which we have Elmira here on stage, who's actually in Iran and can actually kind of tell us about what she thinks of this new deal, and then, of course, your thoughts on the stabbing of Salman Rushdie. Thank you so much, Elmira June, for joining us. I would love to hear your thoughts. Welcome. Elmira, are you there with us? Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, hello, thank you for having me. And after hearing about such a kind of, for example, deals, the only thought that comes to my mind is that the Islamic Republic of Iran will improve its, for example, regional intervention, and that will cause us more problems. And usually, concluding such a kind of deals is a result of democratic regimes, that democratic government that comes in the United States. As all of us are aware of this JCPOA is the result of multi-track diplomacy that was carried out when Democrats are in the cabin in for example, during the Obama era, we have multi-track diplomacy, especially in athletic regions, in athletic areas, and after that, during the Biden era, we see that these kind of, for example, providing Iran with these advantages are continuing. And the only thing is that, Iran cannot do much more with this deal, in my opinion, because in the section of economic section, we have such a kind of rule. As I can remember, D'Amato from the Clinton era, for example, prohibit the U.S. and foreign energy sectors in order to, for example, invest in Iran. And As you see and as you know, the economic sections in the West world is somehow private, and they are not governmental and in opposition with our economic sections. So such a kind of deals cannot guarantee that these economic sections will definitely continue their relations, economic relations with our country, and it does guarantee anything. For example, but if even if it guarantees something, it is not for the benefit of Iranian people. As I know, it is not going to change anything for Iranian people, because the problem is not just the sanctions. The problem is internal, and but removing sanctions provide the Iranian government with more opportunity to follow its adventurous movements in the region, and providing the Hezbollah with more, for example, opportunities, and increase its, for example, as you see, its regional involvement. And it is not for the benefit of Iranian people. I don't see it for the benefit of Iranian people. Yes, in some sections, for example, in the section of drugs and decreasing the currency, the dollar currency, that has a huge effect on our economic sections and our economic situations. Yes, it can help, but as you see during the Rouhani era, the prices get low, and the dollar price is getting low really, and you see differences, you see changes in the prices, but it doesn't provide the Iranian people with much more long-standing benefits, and because as you see, if we sell, for example, oil, it is not for the benefit of Iranian people. It is for increasing the adventurous movements of Islamic Republic of Iran in the region, and Democrats usually provide this regime with these opportunities. Usually, Republicans, when they are in the administration, they do not provide Iran with these opportunities, because they know that it is not just in some sections, in some subtle sections, that is not so important and long-standing. It is not for the benefit of Iranian people, and it is much more for the benefit of adventurous movements of Iran in the region.
Absolutely. No, thank you, Elmira June. And it's always good to hear from someone actually in Iran sharing your refreshing thoughts. Can't agree with you more there. Faisal, I know you got to get back to your restaurant, so I would love to hear your final thoughts on this whole issue if you're still with us, mate. Faisal. Okay, maybe he's not available.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. My final thought is my heart goes out to the Iranian people. Any deal will only benefit the Ayatollahs. Any deal will only benefit the Revolutionary Guard, and the Iranian people will suffer tremendously, and as they did for the past 40 years under the rule, and they will only expand in the Middle East. They will only support with that money and benefit economic benefits their proxies in Iraq, in Syria, in Lebanon.
Yeah, I think we lost you there.
Yeah, sorry. This deal will only benefit their proxies all over the Middle East. Any deals is not for the U.S. National security benefits or interest, and it's such a shame that the Iranian people are going, suffering tremendously, protesting against this regime, and I don't think the Iranian people will ever forgive the Democratic Party for all the hands down they give to this regime to survive. Thank you, and I hope the deal does not go through. I hope the Iranian demands are very high. They came back with, as I read, with more demands. I really pray that the deal does not go through, because the deal will only make the situation in the Middle East more difficult, and it will only benefit the U.S. Adversary in the region, the CCP, the Russian influence in the region, and overall, it's not in the U.S. national security interest. Maybe it's only in the interest of the political elites and the economical elites. Thank you all.
Right. Yeah. No. Thank you, Faisal. And of course, it's a very difficult situation that the Biden administration has got itself into, and it continues to get worse. It continues to get worse by the day. You mentioned the Russia bit. This administration and their poor policy making, and really from the Obama era too, since the coup. We don't have to kind of go down that rabbit hole. It's a completely separate room, separate discussion, separate topic. But over the last 8+ years, you could say, this neo-liberal administration and neocons, they have brought Russia closer than ever to both China and Iran, which previously wasn't that particular type of relationship. So it's really made the geopolitical complex of the world much more dangerous. And let's hope that we can diffuse tensions. And of course, we have to keep in mind China, Taiwan. There's a whole list of other things going on around the world, and we obviously will try our best to cover it. But I mean, the drums of World War III are beating louder than ever, even though it's not formally announced yet. And this is one big one as well, right? Iran, Israel potentially entering a potential war. So yeah, you could say the theaters are lit all over the world. On that note, Adrian, final thoughts for tonight.
Amira, she brought some really good points. This is a this is a kleptocratic regime. The money obviously will not trickle down to the people. What they will do is continue to fund their regional proxies and spread their influence to attack both Israel, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and the Gulf states, with the exception of Qatar, who is working kind of hand in glove with them. So, final thoughts. United States. I know our one guest would like this. I'm going to have to quote Trotsky here, but you may not want war, but war wants you, and that's been the situation for 43 years, and the United States has not recognized that. The Islamic Republic has been at war with the United States. And this goes through multiple administrations. It goes through Republican administrations because it was inconsistent. There was no consistent policy. And I can remember the Reagan administration. You go through Iran-Contra, all these different deals. Bush Sr. was trying to get the hostages back. It was just a bunch of bad deals. But then when you moved into this Obama administration, it was about moving into this system, this world system where you can trust a country that yells death to Israel and death to America, and it's not hyperbole, they actually mean it, and you want to hand them a nuclear weapon and make it easier for them without trust, okay, and without being able to verify. And that's a very scary world to live in. It's scary for American interests. It's scary for Middle Eastern interests. It should be scary for the Germans. It should be scary for the British. It should be scary for the French because they're just downrange. All right. So that's my thought on that. As far as this whole Salman Rushdie thing, keep watching this stuff. I'm telling you, there are going to be more of these things that are going to be coming up in the news. Keep your eyes on this stuff because they are active right now. They're emboldened. Someone can ask me this. I've been answer this for me. I have not heard a single statement from our Secretary of State, from anybody in the White House on the Salman Rushdie affair. Has anybody said no? That is disgusting.
Not one word.
That was a terrorist act taken out on American soil. All right, and we know exactly who did it. And they know exactly who did
Well,
it.
Adrian,
Not
it's because they're trying to appease the regime. They're trying to enter a nuclear deal.
Exactly. And you know what happens when you appease people? You take and take and take until you eventually, they go after you. So good luck with appeasement. It didn't work well for Neville Chamberlain. But thank you. It's been a pleasure.
No, thank you, Adrian. Really do appreciate your thoughts. Shayan, John, final thoughts.
Well, I agree with Adrian as always, and this is outrageous. I really have no hope for this administration to do the right thing. So hopefully, the American people will stand up and at least force them to do it. Otherwise, as Adrian said, they are going to get emboldened, as I said in my remarks, and we are going to see more and more of these kind of activities, and eventually something that nobody wants is going to happen. So yeah, I really don't know what to say. This administration, Biden administration, is a disaster on every level, and I really have no hope for them. I just hope that the next administration we get is going to be more rational, more less ideological, less naive, and more understanding of the reality that we are facing with this Islamic regime in Iran. Uh, that's all. I don't know. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Final thoughts, mate.
Yeah, a lot to unpack. I'm gonna be very precise and clear. Number one, this nuclear deal is an absolute disaster. It does not benefit the Iranian nation. It does not benefit anybody in Iran. It benefits the coffers and the occupiers of this dictatorship inside Iran. Number two, what happened to Salman Rushdie is a blatant terrorist attack. It was on live video. It was on live TV for the world to see. And this bastard who did it should be absolutely punished to the brim. And at the same time, we have to be very precise and clear what is about to happen. Number three, I think the Iranian people need to rise up, and it will happen soon. Hopefully, we will have a president who is competent and who can actually see the danger that is this dictatorship and that what is about to happen. They are emboldened, and they're going to keep doing it until Trump or DeSantis or whoever who's got a spine comes into the White House and has an actual precise U.S. foreign policy to this kleptocratic dictatorship that is the occupation of Iran. So, with that being said, I'm very hopeful. I'm very passionate, and I'm also very optimistic about the future. And the people of Iran are very notorious for being resilient. And my heart goes out to people like Elmira, June, and a lot of people who I know inside, and even some people who are now ready for this to happen. But we have to wait and see. And with that, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Deep, if can I add the
Yeah,
final thought on this?
absolutely. Go ahead.
If it was for the benefit of Iranian nation, during the previous election in the United States, the Iranian people do not pray for Trump to win. You know what I mean? Because the maximum pressure of the Trump era really works for the benefit of Iranian nation, I think. And the only thing that I want to add is that nuclear deal does not guarantee the Iranian nation benefits, and it is not in accordance with Iranian nation public opinion. And because they know that more suffering will come for the nation, not more relieving days. And that is why people do not pray usually for such a kind of deals, because it guarantees the presence of Islamic Republic of Iran for years. But fortunately, this is a deal that cannot be passed through the Senate of the Congress and the Senate section of the Congress, and that is a hopeful point for the previous government, if it is a Republican, that this deal will be terminated forever. Thank you very much.
Thank
And
you.
Deep, can I add one point to Elmira's point?
Sure.
I said before, no one's been consistent. That Trump was the one person who did have a consistent foreign policy towards the Islamic Republic. And 2 years of maximum pressure, and it brought this regime to its knees. When we hit Soleimani, because he was trying to carry out a raid on our embassy there, and they already did a test run on it, they tried to escalate. And what did Trump do? He put more sanctions and put him back into the economic box and hit him where it hurts him the most. And that's where it's most effective. I wholeheartedly agree with you. It's smart power here is the way to do it. Curb them outside their borders and put financial strictures on them.
Thank you, Adrian, and for that matter as well. We had pretty good relationship with both Russia and the rest of the world as well. For that matter, there was not a single war that the Trump administration got into. But here we have Biden, who says that he's not a warmonger. But here we are at the cusp of World War III, possibly. If this theater, right, the Iran-Israel corridor, opens up in terms of war, as well as China, Taiwan, and of course we have an active hot war in Europe right now. So there's a whole can of worms that this could descend into, and I just want to be very clear for everyone as we end this discussion that I think that this is a terrible deal, but politically, of course, we know why Biden is doing this. It certainly does appeal to his constituents. And of course, there's a lot of people in America that do believe the Soros-funded mainstream media and kind of spread the mainstream media as kind of a liberal kind of propaganda and agenda without actually caring for, of course, even U.S. citizens on U.S. soil that get targeted by, Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps agents, right? Of course, the one that stabbed, the Azeri national that stabbed Salman Rushdie. This is some serious issues we have, and of course we've had Masih Alinejad and several other human rights activists in the past that have been active targets of this regime. And why is this happening under Biden? It's as simple as Biden wants to appease the regime, and Biden has a horrific foreign policy record, and we are paying the price for this in real time. So, and mind you, we have another 2.5 years of this regime. I know that the midterms are in November, but the Biden regime itself is one of the worst in American history. I can tell you that. And of course, Biden himself has a lower approval rating than any U.S. president since Jimmy Carter. So, just some food for thought for those Biden supporters maybe in the audience, and anyone who supports, of course, not only this nuclear deal, but on the broader kind of scheme of things, the activities of the the IRGC and the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, which mind you, even if you're not right an American or a Westerner, you look at what they've done to their own people in Iran and how their own people are being treated. I think that'll kind of open your eyes up and kind of shed some light onto the difficulties of the everyday Iranian. So, thank you so much, everyone. Good night, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. And as we always say, to end this discussion, whenever we have a room on Iran, Khuda Hafez, everybody in Farsi. Bye, everybody.
Goodbye, everybody. Javid Shah.